Good morning, everyone. I'm Sandra Kilgore, Vice Mayor of the City of Asheville, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the September 5th, 2024 Agenda Briefing Work Session. And all members and staff are participating virtually. The live meeting will be streamed on the city's YouTube website, accessed through the YouTube icon on the front page of the city's website or by live stream. The live meeting will be available on Charter, Spectrum Channel 193. And you may also listen to the meeting by phone, which is 855-925-2801, meeting code 7283. And at this meeting, we will not be taking any public comment. And council members and staff, as I say your name, please come off mute and say a quick hello. Councilwoman Sage Turner. Okay. Councilwoman Kim Rooney.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Maggie Ullman.
Hey, everyone.
The City Manager, Deborah Campbell.
Good morning.
Assistant City Manager, Rachel Wood.
Good morning.
Assistant City Manager, Ben Woody.
Good morning.
A City Attorney, John Maddox.
Hello.
And City Clerk, Maggie Burleson.
Good morning.
And unfortunately, Mayor Esther Manheimer and Shanika Smith will not be joining us today. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to City Manager, Deborah Campbell.
Did we overlook Councilmember Mosley? Don't know. Were you able to connect in, Antoinette? You're on mute, Antoinette?
Yes, good morning.
Okay.
Good morning.
Great, thank you. Okay, good morning again and welcome to our agenda briefing meeting. And we're going to review items that will be considered by council at your meeting on September 10th. The meeting will be in person. It starts at 5 o'clock and the meeting location is in City Hall. So I've been here for almost 6 years, and on last month's agenda, we had the most items that I've ever experienced. And so continuing in that spirit of precedent setting, this is the least amount of items I've seen on an agenda since I've been here. So hopefully we'll be able to step through this relatively quickly. And by this, I mean this meeting. Assistant City Manager Ben Woody will be reviewing the agenda. And now I'll turn it over to Ben to provide an overview of our brief agenda. Ben.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell, and good morning again, Vice Mayor, member of the council. In the spirit of your comments, Ms. Campbell, I'm viewing this as a birthday present from Maggie, because Rachel had the really long agenda and I've got the really short one. So thank you, Maggie. But I'll start. A regular meeting does begin at 5, but I do want to note to council members that you actually will meet. Your day will begin at 3:50 in the council chambers, and you'll be conducting interviews for your planning and zoning appointment. So again, council, you're going to start a little bit earlier for your planning and zoning interviews. Getting into the regular meeting agenda, we do not have any proclamations. And again, this is the first time I have ever seen this. But other than the approval of last meeting's minutes, we don't have any consent agenda items either. So that moves us to presentations and reports. And I'm actually going to turn it back over to Ms. Campbell for a quick overview of the scheduled manager's report.
Okay, thank you, Ben. That was a quick one. So for the manager's report, staff and I will be providing a status report, kind of an update on the Human Resources Department organizational assessment, which was undertaken in the fall of 2023. The purpose or the goal of the assessment was to explore and assess performance issues and concerns raised by our HR staff, the city manager's office, and other staff. We did hire a content expert, Ref Tellis, to undertake the assessment, and this effort was coordinated with the Cease the Harm audit that had been initiated actually by the Reparations Commission. So it was really important for me to initiate this assessment, mainly due to the critical internal and operational role of an HR department, which is related or should in terms of talent development, recruitment, and retention of staff, compliance and legal adherence, compensation and benefits, and many other key roles that a human resources department is supposed to play. And I'll expand upon those as part of the presentation. I'll also provide an update on the 22 recommendations that was made and prioritized as part of this study. And so we will be providing you again with the update of that assessment. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Ben.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. And we do have one additional item under presentations and reports. We'll have our budget staff. They'll be there to highlight the progress made towards our fiscal year 2024 goals and what we've done as a staff to operationalize council priorities. So again, this will be a review of the FY24 annual report, and budget staff will be doing that. So that moves us down to public hearings. We do have 4 public hearings, so we've got a number of those for your September 10th meeting. I will start with public hearing item A, which is a public hearing to allow the city to convert 2022 limited obligation bonds, short-term bank loan to long-term 20-year debt. This is an action that the LGC requires the city to take. Those 2022 limited obligation bonds totaled $42 million, and they were utilized for a number of capital projects, including the Broadway Public Safety Station, muni building repairs, City Hall elevator modernization, municipal golf course repairs, and to aid and support our annual street resurfacing program. And again, this conversion of limited obligation bonds from an initial bank loan into a longer term debt service is typical for how the city has done this in years past. Any questions on that? Great. I'm going to move to public hearing item B. This is one that council saw at your last meeting. This is an amendment to an existing conditional zoning off Riverside Drive. It allows for the construction of 240 residential units. As I mentioned, you continue this from your August 27th council meeting. During that meeting, council expressed concerns with the project's consistency with adopted plans and the lack of commercial uses that were removed from the original approval. Since that continuance, I was going to say that we haven't received information from the developer, but in fact, we just received, planning staff did, some updated changes to the application. We haven't had time to review those yet, but of course, we'll try to incorporate those into the staff's presentation on Tuesday. And certainly the developer will be prepared to share those modifications with council on Tuesday. Any questions on public hearing item B?
Ben, this is Kim. I'm hearing that we might hear an analysis on Tuesday. That doesn't give us a lot of time to analyze it. Have we asked if the developer could provide maybe like an FAQ or something like that? If there's like things that need to pop out before Tuesday?
Good question. I've got Chris Collins, Assistant Planning Director, on the call today. Chris, I know you just received those modifications. is that something that we think staff can do some initial analysis on? I mean, maybe Councilman Maroney, maybe something that we can include as part of the follow-up document from today's agenda briefing. But again, I don't know the scope of those changes. So Chris, are you able to comment on that briefly?
Yes. So what we've received is far from revised plans or anything like that. After a lot of communication with the attorney, we did receive a list of updates. So that limits our ability to really see and analyze the changes very thoroughly. But I'm in communications now with them to see when we can expect actually revised plans. But certainly if we're able to, we can provide a written update on this ASAP, like today, in whatever format is useful.
Yeah, I see Sage Turner has her hand up. I'm curious if 2 weeks was enough time to have serious revisions or not.
Okay, Sage, like to comment? Sage, you're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute. You can't hear it.
No, we can't hear her connection. She's not on mute.
Perhaps your headphones are in or something.
While we wait for Councilwoman Turner to join again, Councilman Roney, we'll huddle up after this meeting and staff, and we'll do our best to give any kind of analysis that we're able to do prior to the meeting.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It did seem to me that if staff is going to spend a lot of time and it's not like at a plan stage, Sage has her hand back up. Let's try. Maybe Sage has some input.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, everybody. I don't know what's going on with my tech today, but I had just been speaking with the applicant this morning who was saying Chris Collins would be able to share the list during the agenda briefing, that I would expect those updates now. I mean, later is okay, but can we not just forward the list? Does staff need to work on their list?
So when I spoke with Derek Allen, he sent me the list and asked me not to share the document yet till he received clearance from his client. But I could verbally share it right now and then get it moving out as soon as possible, I guess.
I think that would be good, Chris, because they were expecting that we would be hearing it. I was expecting that we'd be hearing it. If it just needs to be typed up and emailed separately, that's probably okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So if y'all like me to, I can just kind of...
Before you do that, I see where Antoinette had her hand up. Antoinette, did you still want to say something? Chime in? I guess she sort of...
You're on mute. Yeah.
Huh? I'm on.
Oh, okay.
I'm on mute.
Sorry, if you can hear me, I was just going to verify what Sage said. I just spoken to the attorney for the applicant, and he indicated that he had gotten the okay from his client to move forward with telling us in this meeting.
Thank you, Antoinette. Okay, Chris.
Okay. So this is close to the first time I've read it. I've read it a couple of times, but so bear with me and I will tell you what this says and then we'll get it transmitted to you. So the memo I received from Derek Allen says that for project updates, they've added all glass to the eastern wall at all building breaks to further emphasize transparency in the building breaks. This is in an effort to make them appear as 3 separate buildings or more so, right? They've done the same with using different building material colors, brick colors along Riverside to try and break up the massing, make it appear more like 3 separate buildings. Added sidewalks connecting the building to Riverside Drive spaced at no greater than every 100 feet. Added public enhancements to both the northwest and southwest building plazas along Riverside Drive. It does not give me detail on those public enhancements. Added public enhancements to the northwest building plaza along Riverside Drive. And some green features have been added. 100% permeable grass pavers for the parking on the Riverside Drive parking area. as well as 100% permeable grass pavers for parking on the 179 Riverside Drive, all diagonal parking area. Added building infrastructure for future rooftop solar capacity. Added electrical vehicle charging stations under the building, and added cisterns for rainwater harvesting from the roof. And then the final elements we have here are the re-addition of some commercial activity. And I'll read those off to you. They've added a food truck area to the 144 Riverside Drive site, added a kayak and canoe rental area to the same site, and added an electric bicycle rental area to the 179 Riverside Drive site. So that's the northwest corner, and that would be adjacent to the food truck area. And that's what I've received so far.
Thank you.
Chris, I really appreciate you. I know how much diligence y'all put into analyzing and assessing before staff reports, and I can feel the nerves of being a little on a limb on sharing. I just really appreciate it, even though we all have a lot more homework to dig through. Just getting a little bit of a flashlight into where it's going is very helpful as we mile mark towards decision making. Appreciate it.
Any other questions on public? Oh, I'm sorry, this is Councilman Turner.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I heard that right, that all of the glass and stuff, the first part was to make it appear, quote unquote, but there are no new breaks in the buildings. And then no changes to affordability. And all of that commercial activity sounds like it would be like parking lot based, not like actual constructed interior space. I guess you don't really know, but okay.
From what we have right now, what you said appears to be correct. So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Kilgore. We will try to get that list incorporated into the staff report. I will follow up with the clerk and planning after this meeting, and we did just, I think we got the list about 15 minutes before this meeting. So again, we're just now getting that information. I'll move on. I'm going to cover public hearing items C and D together. These two items are amendments to the UDO to revise cottage development standards and flag lot standards. Both of these items are resident initiated text amendments. They were initially heard by our Planning and Zoning Commission in August of 2023. At that meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of both those items. I will note over the course of the past, what's been a year now, there have been changes made to both those applications since they were last at Planning and Zoning. City Council, you have continued these items multiple times. The last continuance we had for these two items was April 24th, 2024. Since that time, staff has initiated at Council's direction a comprehensive set of housing-focused text amendments. So again, this is separate from these two resident-initiated text amendments. And the staff work is really focused on text right now, initially focused on text amendments related to housing along our corridors and in mixed-use zoning districts. And I think this is the key point of this is, while we're doing that at the staff level, we've also been directed by City Council to hold back on changes in residential zoning districts until there are sufficient anti-displacement measures that are in effect. And again, that is something that we're working on along with the UDO amendment. So really where staff's at this point with these two amendments is due to the sequencing of the resident initiated text amendments. Staff is not supporting those two amendments at this time. So the recommendation for the flag lots and the cottage developments for next week from planning staff will be a recommendation from denial. And again, we're basing that on the work that we feel like still needs to be done around anti-displacement prior to making zoning changes in residential areas. Any questions on those two items?
Sage, Councilwoman.
Sure, thank you. Just real quick, Council, I mean, I understand the applicant wants to proceed and have this heard regardless of our outcome, and I am greatly respecting our process of timing this afterwards, after the other things are accomplished. So I just want to make sure, suggest that when we are complete with those items, that we actually circle back on this ourselves. At that point, it won't be a resident application, but it is an item that we could take back up, because the idea itself is great. And it's unfortunate that it's just not falling into the timeline of other initiatives being complete first, but I don't think we should give up the initiative in general. So just a little side plea. I see Deborah's going to say, yep, that's the plan.
Well, actually, just a slight deviation of that in terms of, and Chris, please clarify if I'm not reflecting this accurately. We think that there are, as we assess anti-displacement and look at implementation of and changes to the UDO, that we can incorporate many of the goals that I think these text amendments are trying to achieve without having a separate process. We think we can incorporate, again, maybe not exactly what these text amendments are recommending, but I think spirit and intent we can accomplish. Because we can do it in the context of a broader framework of anti-displacement, but also increasing housing supply. So,
yes, exactly. Wonderful, Deborah.
Okay.
That sounds great.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, Chris, Ben, is that okay?
Yes, that's exactly right, Ms. Campbell. I'm sorry.
Wow, our technical issues today. I'm glad it's a light agenda. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So you're exactly right, Ms. Campbell. And actually the flag lots, I would say that, well, I will say that the staff recommendation for denial on that is really just for procedural reasons. It's because the timing of things, but actually staff worked really closely with the applicant. And I believe you'll see a lot of those changes reflected in future amendments. So I completely agree with you, Ms. Campbell. I think you're going to see some of these modifications come in the future. I'll note the cottage development, there's a little bit of, I think there's some elements of the cottage development amendment that we still have some concerns with at the staff level. But again, I think those are things that can be worked through, whereas I think the flag lot, I think it's a timing concern with that's generating the recommendation for denial. But I think we can get to a place where some of those changes with the appropriate anti-displacement strategies in place can be moved forward with in the community. That's a good. I appreciate you sharing that, Ms. Campbell. Any other questions on, excuse me, Councilman Roney?
Yes.
Circling around about timeline, when will we see, or are we penciled in to see something about the anti-displacement strategies so we can propel this forward?
Yeah, that's a really a good question, and I'm actually going to talk about that as part of the 8-week agenda review, but I'll go ahead and mention that now. Staff is going to be in front of City Council on September 24th for a 3 p.m. work session where we're going to lay out kind of the strategy and the timeline for how we're going to propose to advance anti-displacement strategies as well as UDO amendments. So we're going to do a 2-hour, hour and a half, 2-hour deep dive on that on September 24th.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you. So any other questions on public hearing items? Okay, seeing none, your last item under new business on your agenda is, again, you'll have the interviews earlier in the day, but then you'll make your appointments for vacant planning and zoning commission seats at your September 10th meeting. And that concludes the council agenda. Any general questions on that? If not, I am going to move into council committee agendas that are scheduled. And the first one is planning and economic development that I'll go ahead and cover. So at your September 9th PED meeting, we have 4 items on that agenda. The first is business improvement district implementation. As council members, you voted to establish that back in June. And the following 2 months, staff has been working on additional engagement, identifying and making sure that we have the right service priorities to address this part of the bid. And then also, we're going to review all that information with PED, and we're also going to review the timeline for the RFP, talk about some high-level components of the proposed scope, and then next steps in terms of issuing the RFP and contracting, hopefully with a service provider by the end of this calendar year. The second item on PED agenda is we're going to have transportation do a presentation on the Reed Creek Greenway feasibility study. That's a greenway connection that will eventually get from the French Broad River area all the way into downtown. Transportation staff commissioned a feasibility study that has a set of recommendations. So they're going to review those with PED members. The third item is also from transportation, and that is the review of some proposed micro-mobility related ordinance updates. That is an item that was directed by council. Transportation's been before PED when they started that work, and they're going to be back to PED with actual a review of the ordinance changes to our micro-mobility standards, and more generally how we allow alternate modes of transportation on bike lanes, roadways, and sidewalks. And then the last item for PED is we are going to close out the FY25 PED committee work plan. Any questions on that council committee agenda? Councilwoman Roney.
When we see micro mobility on PED coming up with the agenda when it's posted, will there be that red line document available with the attached documents?
It should be a link on the staff report. I'm going to need to confirm that, Councilman Roney, unless somebody else is aware of that. But it actually, I'll note one thing. I'm going to lean on John Maddox. I think actually the way that we are required to do amendments to our code of ordinances, John, is don't we have to repeal entire sections and then replace?
Yes, that's something that's contained in the city's charter.
Yeah, I didn't see that on our 8-week agenda, so I just wanted to see where's the first part of where it would be public facing, because I didn't see it in the August PED documents. So I'll look for it in the staff report.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that. Thank you for that question. If there are no other questions on PED, I am going to turn it over to Ms. Campbell to cover policy, finance, and human resources.
Thank you, Ben. Our meeting is on September the 10th at 10 o'clock, and obviously it's a virtual meeting. We have a number of items, most of them fiscally related, but we will be starting the meeting with trying to finalize our discussion excuse me, of the committee's work plan for FY 2025. Then we'll have a report from Finance and Management Services staff regarding the internal audit plan and program. And this is something I think that would be maybe new information for the committee in terms of how we are approaching our internal audit processes. Then the next item will be the external audit, also by Finance and Management Services staff, getting ready to close out our FY24 year-end audit and update. And then we'll have a fiscal year 2025 debt issuance related to one of the agenda items that you all had in terms of the public hearing for the LOBs. And Finance and Management Services staff will be presenting that as well. And then our last item will be from the city manager's office, providing an update on the GO bond. And for the most part, we're going to try to focus on the communication plan for the bonds. And that will conclude the Policy, Finance, and HR Committee meeting agenda items. There is nothing on these items that require any action from the committee. They're all for information. Ben?
If there are no questions on policy and finance, before I turn it over to Rachel, I just want to go back to PED and Councilman Roney. We will have a red line ordinance of those micro mobility changes included in the September PED materials. That'll go out later today. Yeah, thank you for asking that.
I appreciate
and
that.
I'll turn it. Yeah, thank you. I'll turn it over to Rachel for the HCD committee and equity and engagement.
Thank you, Ben, and good morning again, Vice Mayor and members of the council. As Ben mentioned, we've got both the Housing and Community Development Committee as well as Equity and Engagement Committee scheduled to meet on September 17th. HCD starts at 10 o'clock, and the first substantive agenda item that they have is a quarterly update from the Continuum of Care Board. You'll get this update from Emily Ball, and this will be a quarterly status update with a particular focus on conversation that will happen at the September 12th COC board meeting. Next on the agenda, action will be requested of HCD related to the proposed project reconfiguration at the former Ramada site. And then last on the agenda is a review of the fiscal year 2025 HCD work plan. And that'll be a presentation that I'll lead, and there will be heavy influence from the Community and Economic Development Department as we go through those items. Then at 1 o'clock, the Equity and Engagement Committee will meet. We'll hear from Christina Israel from our CAPE team, a status update on neighborhood matching grants. Then we will receive a presentation from Logan Smith, who's also a part of our CAPE team, on inclusive engagement strategies related to our ARPA-funded community space upfit project. And then lastly, I'll lead a presentation, kind of a part 2 from our August 20th committee conversation related to the committee's fiscal year 2025 work plan. And we'll be focusing in around the work plan items and the referrals to the advisory boards that are connected to those committee work plan items. And that's all we have for EEC and HCD.
Thank you, Rachel. Any other questions on council committee agendas? Being done, my last item for the day is the review of the 8-week agenda. So I'll point your attention to our September 24th meeting, so our second meeting in September. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a 3 p.m. work session to discuss our affordable housing strategies as well as regulatory reform, and that's with a focus on housing and anti-displacement. So that'll be a great opportunity to see what the kind of roadmap's going to look like for the next 15 months or so on that work. At that September 24th meeting, you have 3 public hearings. And then lastly, there'll be 2 new business items. One, Rachel just referenced, is the project reconfiguration at the Ramada property. HCD will discuss that at their committee meeting, but that's scheduled to be in front of full council at your September 24th meeting. The other new business item will be the resolution to accept the $1.37 million in FTA funds, the rescission from the county back to the city. This is just a procedural requirement to accept those funds. And it looks like, according to Maggie, you will have 4 public hearings on the 9/24 meeting. So we've just added one where I've printed out an older version of the 8-week agenda. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is your October 22nd meeting. On that meeting, we do have an ARPA update scheduled. I just want to be clear, that is our typical quarterly reporting on the existing contracted programs that have been funded previously by ARPA funds. Any other questions or items on the 8-week agenda you'd like to cover? Seeing none, I am going to turn it back over to Ms. Campbell.
All right, thank you, Ben. I wanted to touch on one issue, and I don't have it on the agenda, but it was just one that was brought up in our Policy, Finance, and HR Committee meeting about reconvening in person, at least for some of the committees, whether we do all or not, or those that, and these are council committee meetings, for those that want to do it. And I think that there was a question that was posed to me about possibly when could that occur, that we were, having some of the advisory boards that were kind of hybrid, and just making sure that maybe some of the council committees could do it as well. I've asked Rachel to do a little research and provide maybe a response in terms of the timing of when that could possibly be made available for council committees, because we do, for our council committees, but we have afforded the opportunity for public comment. And we just want to make sure that technology is available for these committee meetings. So Rachel, can you update us on that?
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Campbell. So really quickly, the technology needed to ultimately have hybrid meetings conducted in the first floor conference room should be installed by the end of calendar year 2024. And so then testing will occur in December 2024 with the goal to go live and offer hybrid meeting availability for all advisory boards starting in calendar year 2025 in January. Our CAPE team has advised that they will probably need a couple of weeks to work through some of the kinks as they're testing this new technology. And so their recommendation is for the first few months to keep with the advisory boards so that they can work through, develop processes, and make sure things are as seamless as possible before then transitioning into making hybrid meeting technology available for our council committee meetings. So the CAPE team's recommendation is a potential go live date of March, where council committees could begin conducting hybrid meetings. And they would need to do so in the first floor conference room of City Hall.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, we've had what seems to be no technical glitches, as in at or near zero technical glitches at the MPO level. So I just wanted to make sure that we're reaching out to our regional partners if we're having issues with hybrid meetings, because we've been doing them since 2020.
Great. I think it's just upfitting the first floor without technical glitches.
I'll also say that I appreciate the caution to wait 3 months to test, but I don't mind being a guinea pig. I think that the benefit of being in person is hugely meaningful, despite the extra effort it can take to kind of commute in and back and forth. So I'd love to be on committees that try as soon as possible. So that's just a cheerleading voice of, I think it adds a lot to our governance when we have this choice and this option. And I look forward to taking it with teammates.
Thank you. Good feedback. All right. Well, this is what we had for the agenda briefing, unless there are any further questions. Madam Vice Chair, we turn it back over to you. Unless...
Okay, well, Maggie, we were able to make your time, so that's good. So, but do we have any more questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day and week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dan.